So I always like to start the lecture with just introducing the office itself, and one aspect in particular of the office, which is, whoa, this thing is like an earthquake here. One thing about the office in particular, which is its international appeal in a way, and colors, which sometimes leads to some siestas in the afternoon for the Italians. So the colors of the office are ever changing, and it's sort of of course, quite a vibrant place in terms of its, let's say, visitors and colleagues, collaborators. The places where we worked are also very multiple, and we actually making a point to try to make that evolve. So today I'm going to discuss a series of aspects. I have very little time, so I'm trying to kind of put things together in a fast way, especially that we're talking about velocity. One aspect that I like to, sorry for the noise, one aspect that I like to address is this issue of sort of urban apprehension or urban appropriation through the work of skateboarders such as Ronnie Knoll, which are a big inspiration for me. I was myself a skater, and I would say that that's what has led me to architecture. That's what got me to start thinking about architecture and enduring architecture, especially when the result of it has led me to this situation where I basically broke totally my arm as a kid. But like in a more constructive way, we can look at the work that we're doing today in urban space and look at the sort of the way that we've been apprehending urban space and its sort of its conditions or its formulation in our work. And one of the things that we have looked at this project in Copenhagen, which has stretched from like 2003 with the little project here, or little so-so. I mean, it's still a public project for the harbor bath in Copenhagen, to this very big public space and much more sort of varied and programmed architecture piece, also in the center of Copenhagen, and relinking actually the two sides of the city that were basically split up for quite a while. But so just to get on with the condition, or like linking from the first images of the skaters and the sort of this image, for instance, of an urban space that we just realized, and just maybe trying to understand the relationship and what we are trying to do when we work in this kind of condition. One of the things is that urbanity, I mean, we'd like to expand urbanity and expand density, but what we believe is, and of course, like for instance, it's a big issue in Hong Kong, but we believe that as much as you do that, you should in a proportional way expand public space and sort of the urban voids, let's say. And so this is an attempt at working into a condition that is already existing and built, and sort of find spaces and find location where we could expand the public space, in this case on the water. And this was just open late August this year, so it just catch the glimpse, or just get a glimpse of the first, or the rays of sun of the summer, before it became basically now the dark winter already. But it's very interesting to see how the place develops quite quickly into a very lively place in Copenhagen. And so this is a condition that we explored and get the chance to work on in Copenhagen. In other places, we've been looking at sort of expanding urbanity and expanding on things that we had in a different way. And this is an example that's maybe a little extreme, but nonetheless very exciting for us. It's a project to, it's more like a kind of reflection project or a theoretical project to expand and transform the Justice Palace of Brussels, which is, as you may or may not know, some of the biggest, I think when it was up to recently, it was the biggest building in Europe. And what we looked at for the expansion of that project was actually to think of it as a place where the justice of the earth would be taken care of, so that we would, in fact, scrape off all other topics and discuss only earth matters at this place. And this is the sort of proposal that we made. This was an ideas competition, so it's not really something that was meant to happen. I think for a lot of Belgian politicians, that's probably a relief. But, you know, that's a condition that we have to face in my country. Another thing that this leads to, and maybe an example of a similar project at a much more kind of reasonable scale, is this project in Copenhagen, again, in the center of Copenhagen, where we looked at the different points of, the 5 points of architecture of Le Corbusier, and embraced the one of the roof garden. I mean, generally we sort of embrace the ideas that were set out in the early, in the 1920s. And this project in particular makes sense because you're in the most dense condition of Copenhagen. It's a very, very dense block of the city. And then we were asked by the client to create a new, like an expansion of an existing building. So it's sort of collab, or I don't know, like, what do you call that? It's like a joint building, so it's 20 apartments that have a co-living space. They're sharing the same building, and they're together investing in the expansion of it and the renovation of it. And so what they wanted us to do is just basically to raise a floor up and create 3 more penthouses for the block. And what we proposed was to not only do that, but also create a garden so that they could have this thing that they don't have currently, which is a park for themselves and the kids to play around, since their block is so tight. And so we worked on that for a few years. This is the condition that we found when we got there. And this is how it is today, and how the place got transformed in the center of Copenhagen. These are the views from the apartments below. And then the second you go up, you have this like amazing kind of panorama view of the city. And so this is really an idea of how to build, you know, how to kind of densify and amplify the spaces and the somehow semi-public spaces, because this is, of course, a private garden, but it's devoted for all the people living in the building. So you have 25 families that are sharing this condition. Then another project, which you probably know, is the ski jump in Oslo, where we were put to the test at how it is to deal with trying to create, you know, a national icon here in Norway. And when we won the competition, it was one of the biggest challenges was actually to deal with political and media attacks over our capacity at doing the job at all. And then we sort of looked around, and of course the Norwegians are very strong in ski jumping. This is another Norwegian. The Danes, they don't really have any ski jumpers worth mentioning, and the Belgians even no skiers at all. And so, like, we use this kind of joke of comparing ourselves to Zaha did, because Zaha did this amazing project in Austria, which is, you know, quite powerful and maybe probably the first important ski jump to be realized by an architect. And so we were like wondering what is it that she had managed to do, you know, to convince the people. And of course, we were not. We were just using that as a trick, because when I won the project, the first question that the client asked me was, "Will I do the first jump?" And you know, even though I am an ex-skater and I'm really sort of like kind of crazy in that way, I was like, this is a kiss of death. You know, I'm not going to go into that. But the way we managed to shift the whole discussion on this issue was to actually look at the problematics of ski jumping and of the site in itself in a very pragmatic way, and then looking at how we could create a new innovation in ski jumping by realizing a unique ski jump like this one. And actually a very environmental ski jump in many ways, because what we did is combining everything into one shape, try to do as minimum impact on the site as possible. So we had only 2 foots, like 2 places where the ski jump was supported, and then create this place. So this is on the World Championship day. These different pictures, and I was told a lot that the ski jump looked like a long chair for God. So I was very excited about that ridiculous idea, and then I started Googling just in order to see if I could match anything. And the only thing I got that was working was this one, but I thought it was spot on. But another way that I used to describe the ski jump was actually that, because when you look at it from the top, and we used to look at it from the top a lot because we had a model at the office, is to actually describe it as a Chinese spoon, because I thought it really was kind of close to it. But I mean, what's interesting about it is this condition that you are in contrast with, you know, a sort of neighborhood that has nothing to do with it, and this kind of architectural Loch Ness monster popping out around. Another project that has to do with this kind of permeability or urban porosity that we've been working on is a project that we did as a collaboration with 4 offices, which is unusual in itself, in Aarhus in Denmark for a housing complex. And instead of doing this kind of carré block that was imposed by the regulations, we decided to take a risk and challenge these regulations, especially in terms of the height limitations. So we decided to do a housing block where we created peaks and valleys so that you could have basically views from all the way back to our neighbors that at the time didn't exist and still don't exist, but will come, you know, as far as the master plan goes in the future, and for ourselves to create views all over the sea from way back in the site. And so this project became the iceberg in a way, because it sort of looks like a series of ice peaks. And at the competition level, this is how it looked like, and this is the view from the furthest back building looking out into the sea. And you can see that, I mean, the relationship is there, and you have a glimpse of it. And I think in Hong Kong you get that situation a lot, that, you know, in between buildings you get this moment where you actually see a deeper horizon, which is interesting. And that's how it is in a sort of a seen from the sky, realized view here in context with the ferry boats passing by, with the fishermen. And the way it is built, and almost like the same view as you saw before in 3D, but like looking out now from the balcony. We did a little movie. We won, as the Associate Dean mentioned, we won the prize for the MIPIM 2013 for it, which was interesting again, because MIPIM is very commercial and is very much about developers-like projects. And this is a very unusual project in that sense, that, you know, you have 4 architects getting together to do one building. That's already unusual. I mean, you have to put your egos down, you have to work with another attitude. And then on top of that, to win a very commercial or corporate prize was kind of an interesting condition. I can show you, we did this movie, a kind of quick movie for the... We used drones to film this movie. This first time I used drones to film architecture. I can totally recommend it. It's, I think it totally fits the kind of architecture we do. Yeah, that was a quick teaser. So now we're going back to here and actually trying to sort of theorize exactly through a project what I meant with the idea of densifying the build and the unbuilt at the same time. This is a project that we did a few years back as plot called The Battery in Copenhagen. And in 2007, we were asked to do an insane project in Shenzhen, a 3 million square meter project that had to be 666 meters tall. And then after a couple of months, it had to be 888 meters tall. You can feel that, you know, you're in China. And then finally it had to be 1,111 meters tall. And of course Feng Shui, which was a very interesting condition for us to address. The point was that, and when we started to study Shenzhen and the actual location, we realized that over the last 20, 30 years, there had been a kind of insane decrease of nature and a kind of a proportionate increase of urbanity, leading to this condition 25, 30 years ago to this one today. And we thought this was really interesting because instead of Hong Kong attitude, which is to actually deal with topography, I mean, we're still in a very urban environment. In Shenzhen, you had this sort of other attitude, which is to pretty much rise up from the ground and flatten the ground as much as you could. And so we were wondering whether we could apply, a more kind of Hong Kong attitude to Shenzhen, whether that's politically correct locally or not, I don't know. But this was the site, and the idea that we had, because of the insanity of both the program and the density and the height and everything, was to, instead of creating a tower, create a kind of series of neighborhoods that would sort of overlap onto each other. And the standard neighborhood that you could say is composed of is basically housing towards the outside, commerce and offices towards the inside, and a sort of a bizarre Mies van der Rohe-like cross park in between them. And so we started looking into how this combination of programs could lead to a building, and then developed this idea of a project that functioned both as a city and as a tower, or as a sort of overlap of different programs. The interesting aspect was that when you reach that size, you can actually create environments. So the idea of these places, these kind of urban voids that we created, was that they function as outdoor spaces, even though they are controlled internally, and they allow for creating basically energy. Every wind that passes through, so there's an internal breeze, and every wind that passes through is used to create energy for the tower to function. And so this was a project that we ran in 2007 to 2008 for a consortium of investors, international investors, led by a developer in Denmark. And unfortunately, the project died out of a 2008 crisis and became nothing. So it's just a situation that I wanted to show. And then I'm going to finish with presenting a new project that we're doing this year. Actually, it's introduced this year, which is a new brand. We just opened it 2 weeks ago in New York at the new museum. It's basically focusing on product design and their implication to society. We joined the opening of the brand with the redesign that we did of the new museum store. So we created this sort of a weird, I don't know, snake-like condition of a display for the store, which was the joint event for the opening of the brand in the US. In Copenhagen, we have a little store ourselves, much more modest, which is actually more of a sort of a showroom where we display our items. So I'll show you a little bit of our ideas. One of them is to deal with mobility. So we're trying to address issues rather than only do designs. Mobility is a condition that is prominent today. You have the situation of traffic in different cities, which is kind of becoming critical. And what we try to do is basically to come up with a single project that would somehow deal with most of mobility's issues, and with the extreme being that it would deal with going to the airport issue. So it's a bike that can actually take on any carry-on luggages that you can have. So in some cities, you could, and Copenhagen is one of them, you could actually bike to the airport to get to your plane. It's also a two-seater, which is quite special. So you have a two-seater condition, the carry-all tray, and these different functions. Everything is kind of designed into the product, so you don't have to add anything to the bike itself. This is a genius. I mean, if you go out in the winter, this is actually a genius in Denmark. That when you're really drunk and it's really cold outside and you don't want to bike home, you can put your bike on a taxi and get home safe. So that's a thing to apply to all cities. And of course, this bike is fit for it. So this is the way the bike looks. This is the first prototype that we did. Another project for this company that we started is called Accordion, and it's a trestle that is so far the most compact in the world. It allows you to put basically 5 times more trestles in a transportation system than the usual trestles, and it fits into this kind of small stick. I'll show you a video of it just to clarify. And that's sort of how simple it is. Another project is Tilt, and that's a kind of reaction. Maybe as an architect, you know, whenever you want to put a picture on the wall, you have to drill a hole. And as an architect, it feels like a sort of a rape of architecture in a way. So we developed this idea of a simple stilt position stick that allows you to keep your paintings and actually different things on the wall without having to make any holes. I'm just showing you 4 of those projects. The other one is what we call our homage to a conversation. It's called Tea for Two, and it's a simple teapot embraced by 2 teacups, which unfolds like this. And again, with a little video to show it. This one is actually made in China because it's born China, so it makes sense. And then to finally look at a swing. Swing is a project that used to exist in the late 70s. Is a design of a tray that was used in hospitals to carry with one-handed to carry different drinks. And we tried to like look at it again in today's conditions. And so we made a different version of it. It was also used in the Moroccan or like sort of Northern African world as a serving tray, and this is our version of it, and you can see that it gets us straight back to the beginning with skateboarding. That's it. Thank you.
You've moved from spatial design or from architecture in both directions. You're now looking at the last few projects we looked at megastructures and then down to individual products. Where is your next dimension of expansion? Fashion?
Well, actually, one of the products I didn't show you from Makers is a bag. It's a single bag that can do. It's called SMLXL as a kind of homage to Rem's book, but it's a bag that has 4 different sizes. So I mean, there's a little bit of flirting with that, of course. But I think, you know, fashion in a way that is not about fashion, that is about, like, you know, issues again, of course.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.